So in this module, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the basics of design, because what's happening now is you're starting to learn more and more of the building blocks, but you haven't really put them together to anything effective yet. So you don't really sure about the process. You know the little pieces, but you don't know how to construct anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at methods of breaking down a problem and actually coming up with a full programmed solution. And what we're going to do is use a special tool called an Ipo chart. Well, let me explain what that is. Earlier in previous modules I talked about something called IPSO, where IPSO are the four basic operations that every computer does. So there's input, there's processing, there's storage, that should G, storage, and then there's output. Output. As I said, every computer, these are the four basic functions. Now, a lot of times we can combine these two. So what we end up with is IPO instead. So we have input, processing, and storage, and output. So these two are together now. And why do we go about doing this? Well, the truth is that every program that you're going to come across, for the most part, is going to follow these four basic steps in order, which is a beautiful part. It works just like a calculator. A calculator requires input from the user. Once that input has been entered in, it processes and then stores the result. Once it's stored the result, it then gives feedback to the user in the form of output, usually the resulting number or an error message of some kind. Well, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to take all those pieces and we're going to figure out how to do that within a working example. But in order to create that Ipo chart, we need to see what are all the pieces of an Ipo chart. Well, just three columns. We have our input column, we have our processing column, and then we have our output column. And essentially what we're going to do for every single problem, we're going to list all the things that are going to occur. So for example, for input, I want to know all the data requested from the user. So this includes a type and a description. That way we know how to actually do that in our program. Processing is all of the data manipulation. To be done. So this processing typically works on the data that's inputted, but sometimes it works on data that we calculate and other things as well. And when we say data manipulation, we don't just mean calculations. It could be things like conversions and stuff like that. So all the forms of data manipulation that need to occur. And then finally, output. What is the text feedback, or what is the feedback given to the user? In this case, what I want exact text. Don't just give me don't just give me a brief little example of it. I want the exact text for the whole piece of it. Okay? So what we have here is we have our input, we have our processing, we have our output. Altogether, this is our Ipo chart. So for every problem you're going to approach, if you find yourself getting stuck, or if it's a bigger problem, more than a couple lines of code, it's always important to actually approach the problem with this process and actually go through and list out all the chunks. And then it's just a matter of going through column by column. Start at your left, figure out all the data that's being read in for the user, create the variables for that data. Go to the next line, the processing. What calculations need to be done? Do we need to create more variables to store those calculation results? And then finally, in output, display what needs to be displayed on the screen in proper formatting. Make sure that it's user-friendly. Now, if you remember, user-friendly simply means short, concise, and polite. Okay, so that is our Ipo charts.